Hey everybody, welcome back to the K2N Online Paddle School. We're back here on YouTube, and today we're going to discuss the importance of cross-training within paddle sport. Today when we talk about cross-training, we're going to talk about other paddle disciplines and their direct correlation to helping with other paddling disciplines. So you may hail from having a primary main paddle sport, and this video is going to help you understand how other paddling disciplines and spending the time learning and mastering them can ultimately help you back with your main sport, or over a period of time allow you to evolve and take in these cross-training sports as other primary paddle pursuits. Speaking of paddle pursuits, we have a new podcast called The Paddle Pursuit, which you can find here on YouTube. Episode 1 went up last week. The podcast will be ongoing on a weekly basis throughout the rest of the year. We are fortunate enough to have around 25 agreed participants, which we will expand on throughout the year. These podcasts can also be found on Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts, and the video format will be featured here on the YouTube channel. On the social media networks, the Paddle Pursuit may have its own identity, but for now, you can find it under Instagram and Facebook. If you would like to be on the show, or if you know anybody that's interesting enough that we should have on the podcast, please reach out and we'll try to get all of that scheduled today. All right, let's get right to it and talk about cross-training. Many of the paddle sports that I partake in currently initially started as cross-training pursuits. I had no real intention of pursuing these paddle disciplines to a specific level. Over a period of time, I've fallen in love with each of these disciplines, and I feel like each one of them is one of the main things that I pursue. In this cross-training journey, there are a lot of parallels that allow you to learn the strengths of one discipline and allow it to enhance some of the inherent weaknesses of another. What we're going to do today is I'm going to outline what a primary sport would be, how the other sports can complement and enhance that main sport. Then we'll swap out what may be cross-training to somebody as the main sport and then go through the procedure again. There is so much to learn within these different paddle disciplines. If you can become an overall water master, it enhances your inherent ability. Don't be locked down into being successful in very specific conditions or environments or parameters. Set yourself free from these ideas and just try to be the best you can in every situation. Looking at your primary sport being the outrigger canoe, there are many things that we can learn from these other cross-training disciplines such as the surf ski or kayak, prone paddling, and stand-up paddleboard. Other cross-training sports that are directly related would be steering in the OC6 or OC6 paddling in general, dragon boat, as well as the Va'a V1. In canoe paddling, we have to learn to lean forward and to rotate. But in the surf ski, we operate exclusively from our rotational forces and trying to derive our upward power without physically leaning forward and sitting up. The reason surf ski is so good at helping outrigger canoe paddlers is the ability to figure out how to use your hips and use your shoulders to derive power from. When you are in a discipline that is only using this mechanic to make power and to move a boat, you inherently figure it out. Taking those feelings and ability into the outrigger canoe allows you to open up an entire new body movement to find more pressure. Many paddlers are good at coming straight up and down to throw their body weight around, but finding the grace and finesse to swivel your shoulders and to do a very similar thing is the difference between average paddlers and great paddlers. Looking at V1 paddling or OC6 steering, when we paddle in the OC1, we get very good at taking a powerful forward stroke. The Va'a forces you to be multi-directional with what you're doing, taking strokes in different directions and finding that connection in the water is a staple in a boat without a rudder. If you go into the Va'a with only your powerful forward stroke, you will not find the level of success that is inherent to taking different multi-directional strokes. The concept is the same, finding power, using your hips, using your body weight, but instead of finding it on a path that is perfectly straight in front of you, now we're gonna find it out here, now we're gonna find it out here. The feel on the water that you get carries right back over to the OC1. If you can find a lot of power in a paddle stroke at this angle, when you do bring it back to this position, you will only have a superior connection over time. The stand-up paddleboard is on a further extreme of being high with our torso and using our body weight and leverages to come down and up throughout a stroke. The dynamics of how much we use our body is much more on the extreme because we can bend at the knees and hips and physically lower our height up and down. In the outrigger canoe, we have a seat. I can't lower my hips. I can only lower my torso up and down. That being said, just like the surf ski works the extreme of your rotational skills, the SUP forces you to understand and master the extremes of your body weight leverages coming forward and back. That hip extension in its entirety is a tremendous amount of force. We talked about this in the last video where we use our hips and finding hip extension throughout the paddle stroke. Prone paddling brings it back almost to swimming. Many paddlers that start within the sport have a background and history in swimming. The ability to use your body as a paddle and to physically feel that connection on the water is inherently beneficial as we go back into using paddles. The paddle makes the connection on the water and we're using it as a tool to do the same thing that we can do with our hands. Prone paddling position is inherently difficult, so any other position that is more ergonomic allows you to inherently be more powerful. If you can make a prone paddleboard move fast, it is only more simple to make a canoe do the same thing. And finally, the dragon boat teaches us how to be very powerful in the forward stroke position. The only strokes you will ever take in a dragon boat are designed to move a boat and vessel in unison with a team in a straight line. Mindset that goes into paddling with 10 or 20 people simultaneously forces you to behave like water. You must adapt and change to the environment around you. If the stroke rate is 90 or 70 or 60, and that ability to remain fluid through all those things gives you more gears as you go back into the OC1 to be more dynamic on the water and to travel through these different stroke rates with a high level of success. So going to the surf ski, being your primary sport, how does single blade canoe style sport help enhance your ability to move a kayak effectively? One of the main things is your ability to use your hips and to feel your hips. When we rotate, there is not an inherent feel that forces you to engage your hips into the stroke. In the canoe, there is more going on to force that. As we bend over and sit up, paddlers are going to figure out this hip engagement much quicker. Movements are not one-to-one, but the feeling is universal. In the canoe, it's very simple. Sticking the blade in the water and coming up, that's a lot of force instantaneously. In the kayak, again, with the rotation, it's difficult to figure out how to get your hips to pop in the very similar way. Chasing feelings from one boat to the next. The canoe helps you use your hips, and this is what you're searching for in order to be successful within the kayak and the surf ski. The other thing is the top hand pressure. In the canoe, many paddlers are very effective at starting with their hand at a specific height and descending down throughout the stroke. Utilizing water means that we must push down on our pivot point to move the boat forward. In surf ski with too much rotation, paddlers will rotate back and forth like this. A high top hand to start and a higher top hand to finish means that all of your energy and body weight went up. We need it to go down to effectively create that pivot point with the blade. the hand traveling downwards to the water is again very inherent within the canoe stroke and is one of the largest forms of pressure that we can create and need to bring into the kayak scenario. Paddling boats without a rudder and getting a feel for distributing your power evenly on both sides. When we start and use rudders, it takes away a lot of the feel that a boat is going to give us, especially in the kayak. We are inherently going to be stronger on one side versus the other without arduous training to fix that. Your boat is going to want to veer off to the side without any additional input. That input, though, is going to come from the rudder, and lightly touching your foot will keep the boat going forward. Doing this thousands of times over a race, even as small micro adjustments, are things that are slowing down your boat. If you paddle with something with no rudder, you get very conscientious of distributing your energy properly on both sides to make the boat move more effectively forward. Little things like this can add up over time and may not inherently help with your movement or technique, but your boat management and managing that glide can be very effective over the long term. So this video is getting a little long, so we're going to cut that short here. If you would like to see a part 2 where we talk about different main sports or we plug in different cross-training paddle disciplines, we can get that out to you guys next week. Thank you all so much for supporting this YouTube channel as well as the K2NOnlinePaddleSchool.com. The evolution of the school to the YouTube and now ultimately to the podcast is thanks entirely on the community at large, which is you all. Thank you for tuning in, for commenting, for liking, for subscribing, and ultimately interacting with us. Without you all, none of this would mean anything. So thank you again for being part of the K2N Online Paddle School. Remember to tune in on Monday to find that podcast. And if you want to see a part 2 to this video, let us know. If not, we'll change subjects. But either way, we'll see you all next week.